Hello, I'm Robert Rickover, an Alexander Technique teacher in Lincoln, Nebraska, and my guest is Imogen Ragone, an Alexander Technique teacher in Wilmington, Delaware, and she's also a website designer. And we're going to do a little experiment today. I've been working with my colleague, John Macy, who's an Alexander Technique teacher in Omaha, Nebraska, not far from me. And we've been experimenting over the years with various ideas about Alexander Technique directions and Alexander Technique procedures of various kinds. And one of the things that John's very interested in is that we may have faulty assumptions about where we are in space and exactly where our front is and where our back is and our sides are. And if we do have those kind of assumptions, they will produce some harmful effects in our posture and movement. So I'm going to run a little experiment with Imogen has kindly agreed to be a test case
Guinea pig?
for a video presentation of this. And we're going to start. Imogen, I'll ask you to stand sideways to the camera and a little further back from where you are now.
Okay.
So what I'd like you to do, Imogen, is close your eyes. Or actually, you can have your eyes open, but have with one hand a finger pointing to, let's say, the bottom of your sternum. So you just stay, yeah, just a little further down a bit, and have your finger away from your body, and even a little further if you can. And what I'd like you to do is close your eyes and slowly bring your finger towards yourself and stop just before you think you're almost there, or just when you think you're almost there. Okay, now open your eyes and take a look. And it's a little hard to see from here, but I think it's about an inch or two. Oh, yeah? Yeah, and I think that's very common, especially in the West. I think most of us have our bodies placed mentally in front of where it is. So let's now do an experiment. So could you place, now I'd like to start, if possible, to do this with two hands. So take one of your hands and bring it onto your back. You'll probably want to have the back of your hand. Yeah, exactly, because I think most of us couldn't really get our palms around that easily. Okay, and then bring your other hand to the same level in front of you. Good. And what I want you to do is just have a very light touch, enough that you can clearly sense those two hands. Have you got that?
Okay.
Just enough pressure that you know they're there. Now, we're not doing any Alexander Technique self-direction in the usual sense of the word. I mean, if some were to sneak in, we wouldn't be upset. But our purpose right now is just to establish clarity about where we are in movement. So in a moment, I'd like you to take a little walk. And the whole purpose of this walk is going to be just to know that you, who's doing the walk, is between those two hands, or that part of you that's doing the walk is between those two hands. So be interested in their location and knowing that they represent your front and your back. And just go for a little walk with that. And it doesn't have to be a careful walk. It could just be a regular walk, but you're adding that information. And now at some point, to make this as realistic as possible, just bring your hands gently, keep walking as I explain this. At some point, just take your hands off a little bit, but leave your arms in the same position so that we have a good comparison, and continue walking with that in that new way and see if there's a difference.
A difference between when they're
Yeah, on and off. Well, on with your awareness that they represent your front and your back, and then just remove your hands and continue to walk and forget about everything we just talked about initially. That might be the easiest way to do it, to make the comparison. So you just throw that away.
even though you're leaving the hands here.
Yeah, the only reason I'd like you to leave the hands there is because if you let your arms hang free, that'll produce quite a difference. That might affect your walking. And I'd like to make it as much as possible just the contact. What's the effect of that?
So this is walking with my hands on me.
And being aware of them.
Aware of the kind of them and the space between them.
Yeah.
And now I'm just moving them away a little bit.
And you could switch back and forth if you want and see if you notice any difference.
Yes, I did there.
And just play with that a little bit. And it may be hard for our viewers to see the difference, so maybe you could just come on back to the camera and say a little bit about what the difference was.
Well, I think I noticed when you were doing that contrast
Mm-hmm.
to the end, and so I'd been walking with my hands on me, and then I let go a little bit. So they were maybe an inch or two away from the body.
Right.
And you said bring them back again, and it was at that moment when I brought them back again.
Uh-huh.
I think I went up in Alexander terms.
Yeah.
That I decompressed a little bit. I released a little bit into length.
Now, I found with doing that where it's most noticeable is taking the hands away. But that's just, that's how
For some reason, that's just the way it hit me that time.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's see so the whole idea here is just to bring your awareness to your actual location in space. And we've chosen the bottom of the sternum to start with because it is more or less in the middle there is your center of gravity of your torso, head, arm combination. But we could do the same thing with your overall center of gravity, which is a couple of inches below your navel, right in the middle. Do you want to do that little experiment as well? It'd be easier on your hands.
It will. Especially my back arm was getting
the back. It's tricky to, yeah. And by the way, while Imogen's getting herself in position there, it's quite possible that you can achieve some of these effects with just one hand. I think at the beginning, it's really useful to have them both, though, as you're experimenting. So can you turn sideways and maybe move? Yep, good. So you have one hand, her hands are pretty much a couple of inches below her navel, which is where her center of gravity is located when she's standing. And again, it's not just having your hands there, but it's being very clear in your thinking that, whoa, that's my front and that's my back. And then take that right into a walk. And whenever you want to move your hands away in mid walk, move your hands away and just let us know when you're doing that, because visually it might be a little hard to see.
I'm just letting them go.
And you're just walking with a weird set of hand positions, but you're just walking.
I'm just walking.
Uh-huh.
Now they're coming back.
Mm-hmm.
Letting go of the hands.
Mm-hmm.
And bringing them back.
And while you're up, you might want to just do another quick set of experiments. This time, have your hands on either side of your pelvis, a little further down even, but flat against you. Yeah, like that. That's a good area. There's all kinds of things that can go wrong there, right? So again, all you're doing is saying, hey, those are my sides, where those hands are. Not trying to change anything. I want to walk with that awareness that there I am. And again, the experiment could be you would just take your hands away and just walk without any particular thought to it, and then bring them back.
That one's not as clear to me.
Okay, good. So what did you notice from the other ones, though?
The center of the low.
Your overall center? Mm-hmm.
A similar thing that I'd noticed when they were up higher at the sternum level.
Mm-hmm.
When I have my hands on those areas,
Mm-hmm.
it was like giving me a little boost. It was helping me be more lengthened and widened, to use the jargon.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah. Right. And I wonder if we might want to just do one more experiment with both those positions, maybe starting with the sternum, lower bottom of sternum. And this time, see, this is going to be a little trickier, but it might be of interest to just see what happens. What I'd like you to do is start the same way you did before. You know that these two hands are your front and your back. That's where I am as I walk, or that part of me is. And then see what happens if you take your hands away, but just remember where they were. And then as a third step, just toss everything away and just walk without any thought about it.
But I'm still keeping the hands.
No, I think if the second step where you just remember, mm-hmm. you could have your hands hanging free, and then you could then experiment with just plain old walking with no attention and see what happens.
Okay, so back to the sternum, you said.
Back to the sternum, and if you're not sure, you could always cycle back to using your hands. So we're just experimenting here, okay? You're walking with awareness of where your upper center of gravity is. And now if you can, we just continue with that awareness, but the hands aren't there anymore.
I went off camera.
Yeah, well, and then just throw it all or bring it back if you want to remind yourself again. Just play with whatever seems most appropriate. There are no hard and fast rules here.
And now I'm just throwing it away.
Mm-hmm. What did you notice?
I think I noticed that when I kept my attention there, um, there wasn't any significant change between when my hands were there and my hands were not there.
Mm-hmm.
And when my hands, I mean, when I just let go of even any thought of that area and the front and the back,
Right.
and that there seemed to be a little bit of letting down.
Yeah. That's
Happen.
what I noticed. And for me, I can feel a little coming forward too, like a
Hmm.
little almost falling forward a tiny bit and a downward component,
Mhm.
which I take to be my habitual habit when I'm not self-directing or doing something like this. Now, one of the things that John Macy points out is that some people are extremely good at sensing their clothing from the inside. And so, and for them, you may not even, you may, if you're one of those people, you might not even need to put your hands there. For me personally, I find I don't have that kind of sense at all, really, in any useful way. That I really don't think I feel the inside of my clothing, or at least if I feel it, it's so vague that it isn't useful for this. I really need to have hands, but
It just
I
occurs
think,
to
yeah,
me as a woman wearing a bra,
yeah.
there's the strap right
Oh,
over
you got built-in equipment. Yeah,
the sternum area. That
yeah.
could actually be a positive of having this.
Could be a positive. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, the other thing I just want to mention before we close, and what assuming we both feel this is a useful video, we'll put it up on YouTube and you can comment on it. Is so we're both teachers. We've kind of studiously avoided using any Alexander directions here, although there's no reason why Alexander directions wouldn't be helpful. But as a teacher, if you're working with a student, you you might find that initially a useful thing after you've had them bring their hand towards themselves or a finger towards themselves, and if indeed there is a gap between where they think their front is and their back and where it is, um, you, the teacher, could put your hands on the student and follow them around as they're walking initially. It might be even easier. Then they don't have to deal with those awkward hand positions.
Yeah.
But if you're not a teacher and you're just someone who's interested in improving the way you function, um, you might just see whether you are sensitive enough to your clothing that you can actually feel the inside and feel them from the inside, and then just bring your attention to where you're sensing that, and that will take care of it. Or you could just explore using your hands in the same way we have. Or you might want to just find somebody else who can put their hands on you in that location and follow you around. It doesn't have to be an Alexander teacher.
This, of course, is for the purpose of the experiment, not to be going around with your
Well,
hands.
yeah, the whole idea here is that over time you might correct your mismap of where you are. Now, you said that when you took your hands away and just let them hang free that last time, you were able to continue that kind of phantom awareness, you might call it. And obviously, yeah, as you say, we're not going to be wandering around the shopping mall, assuming they still exist when you see this video, with your hands on either side of you. But and there are some other ways of using hands that, if we are ambitious, we might want to do future videos on. For example, I think a really interesting, I'll just throw these out as sort of ideas for the future to experiment with. You might experiment with having a hand just gently in front of your throat as you walk, and just notice what happens. Or you might even want to start by bringing your finger in, see where you think it's almost there, whatever. And again, you're just bringing awareness to where is the front of my neck? Where is it? And where's the back? And there they are. And I want to continue that awareness as I walk or as I speak, or some activity or sing involving vocalization. So I think that covers it. Unless is there anything you think we should add to just explain what we're doing here, or what?
Well, it's very interesting, and just to be clear, I had not been introduced to any of this.
Oh, good. Oh, okay. Okay. So, yeah, go ahead. Your last chance to say hi to your fans.
So the purpose is for people just to experiment and see if it seems to have an improvement, or just what they notice, what happens when they have this awareness, either with their hands or, I guess, imagining where their hands are after you've kind of got a clear.
Exactly. And I think I'll put this up as a YouTube video, but I might stick it in a little blog as well. And just leave your comments, if either way, YouTube or blog, and questions, because we're happy to do another one of these if there's an interest in it. Thank you, Imogen.
You're very welcome.